नमस्कार, मैं हूं भावना और स्वागत है आपका द एस्पिरेंट्स क्लब के प्लेटफॉर्म पर। यहाँ हम लेकर आते हैं आपके लिए डेली न्यूज़पेपर डिस्कशंस और इसके साथ ही कुछ स्ट्रैटेजिक टिप्स और ट्रिक्स जो आपकी तैयारी को और भी ज़्यादा एफिशिएंट बनाती है। तो बिफोर मूविंग फॉरवर्ड, विश यू अ वेरी वेरी हैप्पी होली। और अब बढ़ते हैं आज के पहले आर्टिकल की तरफ। दैट साउंड्स Indian firms buy more oil from Russia and here energy ties may deepen. So if you dig in deeper towards this article, it says India is expected to deepen energy cooperation with Russia as several major Western economies have continued to source Russian energy despite tough US sanctions against Moscow's rulers. तो अभी रशिया और यूक्रेन की क्राइसिस को समझने के दौरान हमने देखा कि वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज ने, वेस्ट ने और यूएस ने रशिया के ऊपर काफ़ी सारे सैंक्शंस जो लगाए हैं, जिसकी वजह से रशिया का जो ऑयल इंपोर्ट और एक्सपोर्ट है, जो क्रूड ऑयल का सप्लाई है, वो यहाँ पे बैन हो गया है. बट डिस्पाइट ऑफ दिस सेवरल वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज एंड इंडिया अलॉन्ग विद देम is still taking oil from them, and which can be a very major signal for our trade relations with Russia here. And in the series of events, we already saw that Indian Oil Corporation, which is IOC, has already bought some barrels of oils from Russia, and after that, Hindustan Petroleum Corporation Limited has bought 2 million barrels of Russian crude oil as energy attempts to secure a part of Russian energy supply. Now, ये जो यहाँ पे oil barrels का supply है, वो हमारे लिए क्यों, हमारे future trade relations के लिए क्यों helpful होगा, इसको समझते हैं. Since West has put various sanctions on Russian oil supply, हमारा जो trade है, we are not trading in dollars rather in Indian rupees. So here we have a scope of strengthening our currency. Apart from that, our trade relations are going to get a major boost from this scenario of Russia-Ukraine crisis. So here, India has taken a very pragmatic and very diplomatic approach while establishing its, trade diplomacy in Russian market, which can be very beneficial for India in future. So for this article, this was it. Let's move towards the next article. That is, India extends $1 billion credit to Sri Lanka. So India stands on its policy, which is neighborhood first, and here on Thursday, India extended a $1 billion credit facility to Sri Lanka to assist the island nation through its worst foreign exchange crisis. Now, Sri Lanka is going through an economic crisis, and that was announced by Sri Lanka in August 2021. Now, if we go by a series of events that happened in Sri Lanka, let's decode it for now. तो अगस्त 2021 में श्रीलंका ने एक स्टेट इमरजेंसी जो है वो अनाउंस की. इसके बाद मोस्ट ऑफ द बैंक्स इन श्रीलंका, दे आर रनिंग शॉर्ट ऑफ फॉरेन करेंसी टू फाइनेंस द इंपोर्ट ऑफ एसेंशियल आइटम्स. नाउ आफ्टर दिस द स्टेट रेवेन्यू फॉल्स शॉर्ट बाय अराउंड $80 billion. The central bank bans the forward contracts and spot trading of rupees at a rate above 200 rupees to an American dollar. अब इसकी वजह से क्या हो रहा है? This led to further foreign exchange crisis in this island state. And after that, as we see, the Easter bomb attacks in 2019 and the spread of COVID-19 pandemic made the situation even worse. And a series of policy decisions that did not deliver the expected result made the Sri Lankan economic condition to a very worse extent. Sensing an impending crisis, the government tried to evade it by imposing a ban on import of vehicles, edible oil and few more items. But among the several important factors leading to this crisis, some of the pivotal ones are these, ban of imports as well. अब इसकी वजह से क्या हुआ? The tourism industry which contributes around 10% of the state's gross domestic product, that is the GDP of the state, saw its worst. And since the Easter bomb blast across Colombia in 2019, on 21st April 2019, Eastern Sunday, which was an Easter Sunday, Lanka's capital Colombo, it saw a serial bomb blast, which was a major, hit to the economy of Sri Lanka, because its churches, its luxury hotels were targeted by these suicide bombers. Now, following this attack, the tourism industry suffered a loss, which was followed by this foreign exchange crisis. So this was a situation of crisis in Sri Lanka. Now, the situation of Sri Lanka got worse, and after that, in Sri Lanka, even the situation of processed food, medicines, and essential item supply was not very much possible. And in this situation, India stood with Sri Lanka, and an agreement to this effect was signed between the State Bank of India and the government of Sri Lanka on Thursday. Apart from that, our foreign minister said that India will stand on the policy of neighborhood first. However, if we decode the fact that in 2022, India has extended $1.4 billion support to Sri Lanka, though a $400 million RBI currency swap different to a $0.5 million loan and another $500 million as a line of credit for the country to sustain its essential fuel imports. So that was India's stand in Sri Lankan economic crisis. So this was it about for this article. Let's move towards the next article. So if you scroll down, you have an article on page number 2 that deals with the city news mostly. Okay, so this article is important to you for a concept, and that is of green startups. Now here, Delhi government is to fund green startups. The news says that the Delhi government is planning to give 25 lakh each to 8 startups to provide sustainable solutions to environmental problems such as air and water pollution faced by the city. Now, these startups will also get a conducive ecosystem of guidance, incubation, and the necessary linkage and support from IIT Delhi according to a proposal for Green Delhi Startup Challenge. Now let us understand what are green startups. So green startups are an initiative through the social entrepreneurship that creates a green industry which helps to solve environmental problems through the development of innovative solutions. Some companies try to go green either to reduce environmental harm or to gain consumer support. Okay, so if we understand green startup in details, let us understand some major takeaways of the green startups. So green startups seek to leverage technology to create environmental friendly and encourage environmental friendly products and to encourage social good. Apart from that, green startups face unique challenges in attracting the right investors and competing with traditional growth only focused entrepreneurship. Still, some of the green startups have seen great success, and the green startups are something which are very good from the perspective of development and growth for the environment, and that is why government has focused so much on green startup. Now, if we talk about some significant key features of green startups are attracting venture capitalists and are gaining new support from socially responsible investors, green investors, and popular crowdfunding platform. So green startups are a major highlight for now in the field of entrepreneurship, and they are getting major boost from the investors and the crowdfunding platforms. So that was a concept that we want to deal through this article, that was about green startup. And for the Delhi government program, these green startups are supposed to be mentored by IIT Delhi. So now if you go down to page number 3 that deals with the state news, we have a news from Arunachal, that is 44 agreements with private power developers are scrapped in Arunachal. So the Arunachal Pradesh government has scrapped 44 memorandums of agreement which were signed between private power developers more than a decade ago for failing to start working on them, the 60-member state assembly was told on Wednesday. Okay, so recently the Arunachal Pradesh government scrapped 44 memorandums of agreements that were signed between the private power developers and the state a decade ago. So, for this, Deputy Chief Minister said that who also holds the hydropower portfolio, he just said that the terminated projects have been offered to the central public sector undertakings considering their performance and reliability. On this, he also said that the government has handed over some of the terminated projects to CPSUs. They include 120 MV NAFRA and 90 MV new mailing projects to the Northeastern Electric Power Corporation Limited. Apart from that, 420 MW aluminium, 500 MW MNE and 400 MW Mihondon projects to Satluj Jal Vidyut Nigam Limited. So these projects were scrapped from the private investors, and they were mostly taken with the hands of the state or the public service units for their on the basis of their performance and reliability. Okay, so if you scroll down to this page only, at the downer side, so you have a very important article which is regarding the setup of joint ICC panel in film industry. Now this was the decision which was passed by Kerala High Court. Now why this article is important to you? This article is important for you from the perspective of understanding of an act which is Sexual Harassment of Women and at Workplace Act under Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal of 2013. Now this act was passed in 2013. We will detail this act, we will discuss this act in details, but before this, let us understand the series of events that took place for the decision to be passed out. A division bench of Kerala High Court on Thursday observed that the organizations associated with the film industry included AMMA, which is the Malayalam Movie Actors Industry, Film Employee Federation, etc. Now they should take some steps to constitute a joint committee to deal with sexual harassment of women. Okay, now let us understand why this article is important. We talked about the fact that this article is important from the perspective of this act. So this act becomes very important for us to understand. Okay, so the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013. It is a legislative act in India that tries to seek and to protect women from sexual harassment at their place of work. It was passed by the Lok Sabha, the lower house of the Indian Parliament, on 3rd September 2012, and it was passed by the Rajya Sabha, which is the upper house of the Indian Parliament, on 26th of February 2013. So now let us understand some of the key highlights of this act. So this is an act which aims to provide protection against sexual harassment of women at workplaces and for its prevention and redressal of complaints of sexual harassment and for the matters connected to it or the incidental thereto. Sexual harassment results in violation of fundamental rights of a woman to equality under Article 14 and 15 of the Constitution of India. Apart from that, it also violates right to life and live with dignity under Article 21 of the Constitution, and right to practice any profession or to carry any occupation, trade or business, which includes a right to safe environment which is free from sexual harassment and offense. Now, how does this act define sexual offense? This act defines sexual harassment at workplace and creates a mechanism for redressal of complaints. It also provides and safeguards women against false or malicious charges. Now, the act also covers concept of quid pro quo harassment and hostile work environment as forms of sexual harassment if it occurs in connection with an act or behavior of sexual harassment. The definition of aggrieved women who will get protection under this act is extremely wide to cover all women irrespective of her age or employment of status, whether in the organized or unorganized sector, public or private sector, and cover clients, customers and domestic workers as well. Now all these women are covered under this act, which is whether they are in organized sector, unorganized sector, public or private sector, domestic sector or domestic workers as well. Okay, so And these are the forms of harassment that this act recognizes. The concept of quid pro quo harassment, I will talk about it later. Hostile work environment, you understand. So these are the forms of sexual harassment that has been recognized by this act. Apart from that, if an employer has been an employer has been defined as a person who is responsible for management, supervision, or control of the workplace, and includes person who formulate and administer policy of such organization under section 2G of this act. Now, what is quid pro quo harassment? So, according to this act, which was the Sexual Harassment of Women Prevention and Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013, quid pro quo harassment can be defined as the type of sexual harassment where one can take any form of physical advantage, contact, or demanding any sexual favor from the woman who is under consideration. So this type of harassment is called quid pro quo harassment. So all these kind of harassment at the workplace are included under this act, and quick actions are taken for such kind of offences. So under this act there is a provision of setting up internal complaint committee, which is ICC. Now, this was a decision which was passed in this context by Kerala High Court, that there needs to be setting of internal complaint committee panel in the film industry as well. So this was it about this article. Now this act is very important for you to understand and remember. So yeah, that was something important which you can take away from this article. The next article is about Rajasthan plans to get coal under bridge linkage. We'll understand this article in detail. This article deals with two important concepts. One is the Parsa coal block. We will understand the location and situation of Parsa coal block. Then we will also look at the map of Rajasthan thermal power plant and understand what are the thermal power plant stations which are there at Rajasthan. So, thermal power plant stations in Rajasthan which are facing an acute shortage of coal will shortly get the coal under the bridge linkage plan following a recommendation of Union Ministry of Power. So this was the news, and here what is important to understand is the thermal power plant का concept and what are the thermal power plants stations which are situated in Rajasthan. Before that, let us understand some of the stance by both the tribals and the government. So, as per the norms of the coal ministry, the bridge linkage acts like a short-term arrangement to bridge the gap between the requirement of coal of a specified use plant of the center and state public sector. The shorter duration of bridge linkage acts as an incentive for the allocation of expedient products from the coal mines and blocks. While there is no minimum assured quantity, the coal is supplied on the best effort basis after meeting the existing contractual obligation of the coal companies. So basically यहाँ पे जो coal companies की need होती है, जो उनकी requirements होती हैं, उसके basis पे जो coal का supply है वो इस bridge linkage के माध्यम से उस bridge linkage के द्वारा जो है उनको provide कराया जाता है. So this bridge linkage basically act करता है एक short term arrangement की तरह, जो कि जो गैप है, रिक्वायरमेंट गैप है कोल का एक प्लांट और सेंट्रल या फिर स्टेट के बीच में, उस गैप को ये फुलफिल करता है. अब यहाँ पे ट्राइबल्स क्या कंसर्न्स है. तो पारसा कोल ब्लॉक सिचुएटेड इन अ ट्राइबल डोमिनेटेड रीजन. जो पारसा कोल ब्लॉक है यहाँ पे वो एक ट्राइबल डोमिनेटेड रीजन में है जो कि फॉरेस्ट से सराउंडेड है. नाउ दिस रिक्वायर्स अ क्लियरेंस फ्रॉम यूनियन एनवायरनमेंट मिनिस्ट्री, and this is to be stated under the provision of this environment union ministry here. तो यहाँ पे जो लोकल पॉपुलेशन है, जो ट्राइबल्स हैं उस रीजन के, दे विल बी इन प्रॉब्लम इफ दिस कोल एलोकेशन इज डन. So this is a concern for tribals, for which the Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot has recently raised a concern. So let us understand a bit about Parsa coal block. So Parsa East and Kanta Basin is an open pit which is 15 million ton per annum coal mine, and it is operated by Adani Groups and owned by Rajasthan Rajya Vidyut Utpadan Nigam in Chhattisgarh state, India. Okay, so if we understand the thermal power plant map of Rajasthan, let us see what are the thermal power plants in Rajasthan and where are they situated. Okay, so let me scroll a bit. Yeah, so I hope the map is visible now. So you see this map of Rajasthan, and these red marks, these red symbolization denotes the power plants in Rajasthan. So one of them you find on the upper half is at Suratgarh. Then you have a power plant station at Jaipur. You have another power plant station at Kota. Then you have at Baran, Gurha, and then Thambali. So these are the thermal power stations of Rajasthan. Okay, so here you need to visualize this map very carefully to understand the location of thermal power plants in Rajasthan. So this is very important for you from the perspective of your exam, that you can keep in your mind for now. Okay, so this was it about for this article. Let's move towards the next article on page number 4. The article deal with the states. On page number 5, nothing significant you find. On page number 6, there is a very analytic article that talks about transmogifying a behemoth, which is the railways. So this is a very analytic editorial about railways, the privatization of railways, the dilemma of identity on railways, as well as the conclusive remarks on these schemes about railways have been concluded through this article. So what is the context of this article? So recently we saw a lot of developments. We saw meetings which were held with regarding the running of bullet trains, and then we have certain trains on the pattern of bullet trains like Vande Bharat. Then we have the provision of Vista mode coaches and airport standards, remodel stations, and then we have a talk which is going regarding the privatization of railway, which is a very feel good image about railway. But how successful, how validated are these images? We'll be talking about this through this article. Now I will read out this paragraph, and then I'll explain it to you. What does it mean? Okay, so despite the recent strictures passed by the Comptroller and Auditor General of India for attempting to airbrush the financial statistics of 2019-20 and 2020-21, in order to project that the Indian Railways is in black, attempts to continue window dress the financial statistics. Thus, in a revised estimates for 2021-2022 against a pension outgo of 52,500 crore, the appropriation of pension fund is restricted to 49,000 crore. If the full outgo was reflected in the appropriation of the pension fund, the nominal surplus of 875 crore would turn into a deficit of 2,375 crore, in turn landing the Indian Railways in the red. Now I hope कि इसमें आपको बहुत ज़्यादा चीज़ें समझ में नहीं आई होंगी, क्योंकि इसमें एक कॉन्सेप्ट इन्वॉल्व है जिसको समझना बहुत ज़रूरी है. Now what is this concept of red and black in economy? So basically when a company is in the black, जब कोई कंपनी ब्लैक में होता है उसका मतलब ये होता है कि it has a positive earning and it is financially solvent and it is not burdened by too much of debt. लेकिन जब कोई कंपनी अनप्रॉफिटेबल होती है या फिर लॉस शो कर रही होती है तो उसको हम कहते हैं कि वो जो कंपनी है वो रेड में है. अब ये जो दोनों ही टर्म है ये जो है ये फाइनेंस को यहाँ पे रेफर करते हैं. तो इस पैराग्राफ में क्या कहने की कोशिश की गई है कि बहुत कोशिश की गई कि रेलवे को जो है मतलब डेटाज और स्टेटिस्टिक्स की तहत जो है उसको हम ब्लैक मार्क में दिखाएं, लेकिन जो पेंशन का आउटगो है जो फंड है वो ये दिखाता है कि इंडियन रेलवेज जो है वो रेड मार्क के अंदर आती है। अगर हम बजट एस्टिमेट की बात करें 2022-23 की फ्लाइट अर्निंग्स के तहत, तो हम ये समझ सकते हैं कि वी हैव ट्राइड लोडिंग 75 million tons in order to generate an additional revenue of 20,000 crore, where during 2021-2022 the incremental loading of 169.06 million tons generated 28,044 crore। अब ये जो अर्निंग है ये यहाँ पे बहुत डिसप्रोपोर्शनेट दिख रही है। 28,044 करोड़ और 22-23 का जो बजट है उसमें हम इंक्रीमेंटल अर्निंग देख रहे हैं 20,000 करोड़, और 21-22 में ये जो इंक्रीमेंटल अर्निंग है ये जो है ये 28,044 crore रहा है। Now you see the difference, and this shows that the increase in earning has been very disproportionate here. अब यहाँ पे प्रॉब्लम क्या है? So there is this dilemma, and this dilemma is of dilemma of identity for railways. Now Indian railways suffer from a dilemma of identity, because for here it's the question of a commercial identity or governmental department trying to work on commercial principles. Now there is this game of versus for both these form of identities. One is the standby of a commercial identity, and second is governmental department trying to work on the commercial principles. अब हमें यहाँ पे ये समझने की ज़रूरत है कि रेलवेज बीइंग द ओनली अर्निंग डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया दैट fully meets the salary and pension obligations out of its own earning, it has always been an outliner. अब ये जो प्रेशर है यहाँ पे रेलवेज के ऊपर टू प्रोजेक्ट एन इमेज ऑफ पब्लिक अंडरटेकिंग विच इज फाइनेंशियली वायबल, ये यहाँ पे बहुत इमेंस हो जाता है। क्यों? क्योंकि ये एक्सप्लेन करता है एक ऐसी टेंडेंसी को जो फाइनेंशियल स्टैट्स को जो है वो यहाँ पे फिल करती है। अगर हम इसको दूसरे तरीके से देखें तो हम ये देख सकते हैं कि अभी रिसेंटली आप एक ट्रेंड, एक इमर्जिंग ट्रेंड जो है वो गवर्नेंस में देख सकते हैं, दैट गवर्नेंस इज परस्यूइंग टू इन्वेस्ट highly in projects which have long gestation period. For example, line doubling and new lines of electrification projects can be amongst them. But रेलवे के साथ अगर हम ऐसा करते हैं, उसको प्रोजेक्ट बाई में डाल के वहाँ पे इन्वेस्टमेंट लगाते हैं, तो इट कैन सेंड अ सिग्नल दैट द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हैज स्विच्ड टू द पॉलिसी ऑफ हेवी इन्वेस्टमेंट टुवर्ड्स कैपेसिटी एक्सपेंशन। ओके, अब इस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में अगर हम 8 पे कमीशन की बात करें तो 8 पे कमीशन विच इज ड्यू बाय 2025-26, it can bound to strain finance further. But here government needs to acknowledge that in short term Indian Railways will have to function as spending department. अगर हम इस बात को एक्नॉलेज करते हैं कि थोड़े टाइम के लिए जो रेलवेज है उसको अगर हम प्रॉफिट डिपार्टमेंट की तरह ना देखकर स्पेंडिंग डिपार्टमेंट की तरह देखते हैं, we might paint this picture better that the railway is a profitable company in future, profitable department in future. Because for now what we are trying to do, we are trying to paint a picture of railways which is profitable, but through the stats that we have, which is not a very good deal if we take it from a very futuristic perspective. Now what are the utopian outcomes for this? First, the absence of a clear policy is evident in this theoretical area which is changing the management architecture of Indian Railways. जो हमारा मैनेजमेंट है वो यहाँ पे क्लियरली एक फेलिंग स्ट्रेट वे यहाँ पे दिखाई दे रहा है। If we talk about a momentous decision which was made by the Union Cabinet in December 2019 to do away with the decade-old system of recruiting officers to aid organized Group A services in railway, through the CES examination, which is this civil service examination, and it was changed to the recruiters to a single service called IRMS. So recently 2019 में ये जो एक मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम था रिक्रूटमेंट का, इसको चेंज कर दिया गया. अब रेलवे में जो ग्रुप ए सर्विसेज थी, जो ग्रुप ए ऑफिसर्स हायर किए जाते थे, जो कि पहले सिविल सर्विसेज के थ्रू किए जाते थे, उसको चेंज करके अब जो रिक्रूटिंग अथॉरिटी थी, इट वाज चेंज टू IRMS, विच इज इंडियन रेलवेज मैनेजमेंट सर्विसेज. नाउ IRMS फॉर्म तो हो गया, which was after a delay of 2 years. On February 9, 2022, IRMS was formed. And it was followed by the announcement of nearly 40% of reduction in Group A cadre strength under IRMS. इसके साथ ही यहाँ पे क्या किया गया कि IRMS जब it started recruiting, जो Group A cadre services की जो vacancies थी, उनमें एक 40% का reduction लाया गया, which was more significantly notified that the recruitment would be through CSE. CSE के थ्रू जब रिक्रूटमेंट होता था और जब IRMS के थ्रू रिक्रूटमेंट होने लगा, so definitely this process of recruitment was more gimmicky, and there was a reduction of 40% in Group A cadre strength. Now, the purported argument which was advanced for this was that even now 70% of the candidates who qualify in CSE are engineers, and therefore there is no need to hold a separate examination for the IRMS. Okay. Now, if we try to draw certain conclusions from this argument and from this whole scenario, there are certain things that we can draw. First, Indian Railways is content to recruit its managers and not engineers. अगर हम यहाँ पे गवर्नमेंट के डिसीजन को समझे, जो कि ये था कि IRMS का जो कैडर स्ट्रेंथ है रेलवेज का, उसमें 40% को रिडक्शन ला दिया जाए, और आर्ग्यूमेंट ये दिया गया कि जो क्वालिफाई करते हैं वो मोस्टली इंजीनियर्स होते हैं, तो उनको IRMS के तहत जो है सेपरेट एग्जामिनेशन देने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. इससे हमें यहाँ पे ये समझने की ज़रूरत है कि रेलवेज जो है वो अपने मैनेजमेंट के लिए मैनेजर्स ढूंढ रहा है, ना कि इंजीनियर्स. एंड इट इज़ नॉट नेसेसरी दैट द इंजीनियर्स आर गुड मैनेजमेंट होल्डर्स एज वेल, because they definitely know how to manage technical functions from a coherency. But at the same time, management is not something which is just engineering skill. Now, the second point that can be noted here is, it is most likely that the recruiters will be, they might be the top rankers in CSE. And the third argument was reluctant engineers may not become available in sufficient numbers, assuming that the government still considers candidates with engineer background are required to manage technical function within Indian Railways. अगर हम इस बात को ऐसे समझें, तो there can be no departmental silos and a common seniority, and through it is possible to visualize a situation where a recruit starts his career managing locomotives and rolling stock, and then advances through middle management levels, managing track signals and communications, and then at senior management levels. हम यहाँ पे अगर ऐसे समझे कि एक रिक्रूट के पर्सपेक्टिव से इस चीज़ को देखें, जो एक हायर्ड पर्सन है उसके पर्सपेक्टिव से हम अगर इस चीज़ को देखें, तो कोई भी पर्सन जो है वो यहाँ पे आते ही सीनियर मैनेजमेंट लेवल पे नहीं होता है. सो देयर आर लेवल्स दैट अ पर्सन क्रॉसेस टू. द फर्स्ट लेवल वेयर दे अंडरस्टैंड द मैनेजमेंट ऑफ लोकोमोटिव, रोलिंग स्टॉक, then they go through the middle management, and final to a seniority position about management. So here these arguments proves to be very futile if we understand that. Now other move जो था वो यहाँ पे था privatization का. Now this may appear to be very bizarre that there could be a method through which railways can be privatized, because the Indian Railway is poised to migrate to the public-private partnership now, which is a joint venture mode or outright privatization in its major activities like train running, asset maintenance, station management, project management and its execution. Okay, तो यहाँ पे ये समझना ज़रूरी है कि अगर रेलवे का जो प्राइवेटाइजेशन है वो हो जाता है, या फिर अगर हम एक जॉइंट पब्लिक प्राइवेट पार्टनरशिप या वेंचर को लाते हैं, तो जो रिलेवेंट डोमेन एक्सपर्टीज है that will reside in the private sector, and apart from that it will be supported by lower levels promoting managers and supervisors from the technical cadres. Okay, इसके अलावा जो रिसर्च और टेक्निकल एस्टैब्लिशमेंट है वो एक बार के लिए फिर भी ऑटोनमस इंस्टीट्यूशन रह सकता है, लेकिन जो रेसिडुअल इंडियन रेलवेज हो जाएगा दैट विल बी मैनेज बाय मिडिल एंड हायर लेवल्स बाय कैडर ऑफ फ्री व्हीलिंग मैनेजमेंट्स which will be essentially functioning at a contract administration. अगर ऐसा होता है तो ये जो है मैनेजमेंट की समस्या को सुधारने की जगह और ज़्यादा मुश्किल बना देगा, बिकॉज the management trainees will be on the contractual basis and that will come with a problem of more confusing analytics for the management of railways here. Now this perhaps explains the unprecedented reduction in the cadre strength of IRMS for most 40% as compared to the cadre strength of the present group from 8,000 to about 5,000. अगर हम इसको इफेक्चुअली समझे तो दिस इज द बिगिनिंग ऑफ द एंड ऑफ द इंडियन रेलवेज एज वी नो इट टुडे. So we have already seen railways going from black to red as a profit making only governmental department to department which is in loss. But if we understand the consequences of privatization of a department like railway, we have seen the challenges, we have seen the future occurrences that can be harmful for the growth of this department and for it to contribute significantly in the economy. At the same time, it is also a tragicomic that a matter of seminal importance, a transfer migration railways should be subject to second guessing conjecture and speculation. Okay. So, अगर हम इस पूरे आर्टिकल को समअप करें तो कुछ चीज़ें हैं जो यहाँ पे ध्यान रखने लायक हैं. For now, Indian Railways being government owned, it is very much possible that it provides nationwide connectivity irrespective of the profit. लेकिन अगर रेलवेज का प्राइवेटाइजेशन हो जाता है तो हमें ये बात यहाँ पे ध्यान रखनी होगी कि जो रूट्स हैं जो लेस पॉपुलर हैं दे माइट बी एलिमिनेटेड, और अगर ऐसा होता है तो देयर विल बी अ वेरी नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट ऑन द कनेक्टिविटी. सो कनेक्टिविटी का इशू हो जाएगा, प्लस जो ये हायरिंग का इशू हमने देखा, इफ दैट इज डन ऑन अ कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल बेसिस और इफ the privatization affects that, there will be a very gimmicky confused situation for the management. तो ये कुछ इश्यूज हैं जो हमने यहाँ पे अभी समझा. दूसरा प्रॉब्लम जो है आप ऐसे देख सकते हैं that the private players would be very much concerned with making profit. तो डेफिनेटली यहाँ पे रेलवे जो है एक प्रॉफिट मेकिंग डिपार्टमेंट तो बन जाएगा, but at the same time it will result in a rise in prices which can result in poor reach to all segments of society. And for this will undermine the very idea, the very purpose of railways, and this can result in a loss to road transport. So these are few of the perspectives that can be thought upon while we think about privatization of railways, which is something which is very near in the coming future. So that was it about this article. If you move forward, then you have the section of text and context, I guess. OPED section mein there's nothing significant today. So there is one article, basically a data point that talks about which item drove up inflation in February 22. So you can see this picture, and as we dealt in an article few days ago that retail inflation has accelerated to 6.07% in February 2022, while the wholesale inflation remained in double digits for the 11th consecutive month. So, what are the products that attributed to the increase in inflation? Sorry. So these are vegetables, mustard oils, airfare, chicken, telephone charges, petrol, kerosene, and LPG. So these are the sectors which were driven by the rise in inflation. And at the same time, the WPI, which is WPI of whole items in February 2022, it is depicted on this axis. You can have a look at this. Okay. So WPI is basically the wholesale inflation, and while CPI denotes retail inflation. So these are the two graphs that details both WPI and CPI for you. You can have a look on them. So yeah, this was it for today. Let's meet tomorrow for the discussion again. And if you like our video, do like, share, and subscribe this channel. And do press the bell icon so that you keep yourself updated for the coming updates. Thank you. Have a nice day.